Why do Indian people often confuse their W's and V's when they're speaking English? For instance, they might pronounce the word very as like wery. The answer is probably a little bit more complicated than you'd think. You might be thinking that Indian languages don't have a V sound, but they do have a W sound, so they just replace English V's with W's. But actually, my example at the beginning was a little misleading because many South Asian languages don't have a V or a W. They have what's called a labiodental approximant, which is kind of both and kind of neither. So instead of pronouncing very as wery, they'd pronounce it more like wery. Obviously, I just flapped the R, which is more common in Indian English, but also you might have noticed that that L sound doesn't really sound like a V or a W if you listen closely. And that's because it combines aspects of both sounds. When I say W in English, my lips never touch, and in fact, they never even get close enough to vibrate, otherwise it would sound like V. But when I say V in English, my teeth are very much touching my bottom lip. So the labiodental approximant is kind of like a V because you use your teeth, but it's also like a W because they never actually touch your bottom lip. So it's V. So since many South Asian languages like Hindi don't have W or V, but they have this similar sound, they kind of just map it onto both W and V when speaking English. So both wine and vine become line. And actually there's a lot of languages that don't have the same organization of voiced labial consonants that English has. So for instance, Spanish technically doesn't have V or W either. The letter B in Spanish actually represents the phoneme B. However, in certain contexts like in between vowels, it's often pronounced as a V, where your lips get close enough to vibrate but they don't actually touch. And some speakers actually use something pretty close to the English V in those contexts as well. But at the beginning of an utterance, it's more common to use the hard B pronunciation. So for instance, the English word view might get pronounced more like bew.